This is Senior Algebra, Section 6.6, Applications of Quadratic Functions. So today we're going to be solving some quadratics with geometric figures, consecutive integers, and a little bit of the Pythagorean theorem here. So taking a look at example 1, it says, create an equation, find the height of the parallelogram if the area is 168 feet squared. So, first thing, it's a parallelogram. How do I find the area of a parallelogram? Well, let's recall here that when I have a parallelogram, I really could take that triangle off and put it on the other side. If I took that off, put it on the other side, fill that in, what shape does that make? Well, it's going to make a rectangle here. How do I find the area of a rectangle? It's going to be the length times width, or base times height here. So for a parallelogram, it's the same way. The area is going to be the length times the height. Now, when we talk about the height, we're looking at the perpendicular height. Because there are a bunch of different heights here for that parallelogram. The perpendicular height is the height that it makes with a right angle. And notice we do have the right angle there. So that is my perpendicular height. So the area is going to be 2x minus 8 times x plus 4. The length times the height here. Now, what does it equal? It equals the area. Well, in this case, we do know the area. The area is 168. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this. I'm going to FOIL, and I'm going to get 2x squared. The 8x and the negative 8x are going to cancel out, minus 32. So when I move some stuff over, I'm going to solve this. It's a quadratic, so I'm going to move everything over to one side. I'm going to get a 0. So I get 0 equals 2x squared minus 200. At this point, you could get the y alone. For me, I'm going to divide by 2, just to make it a little bit easier, and get x squared minus 100, and I'm going to factor that. Now, again, you could choose to move the 100 over and take the square root. That'd be okay. But since we are doing factoring here, I'm going to factor into x plus 10 and x minus 10. So typically, we're going to solve each of the parts. So x plus 10 equals 0, x minus 10 equals 0. And I'm going to get x is negative 10 or x equals 10 here. And if it wasn't a word problem, that would be correct. However, we have to use a little context in the problem here. So let's take a look. If x is negative 10, okay, let's go back up. If I put in negative 10 for x, what do I get for my height here? Okay, it's x plus 4. So that's going to be negative 10 plus 4. Well, negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. Does that make sense in the context of the problem? No, I can't have a height that's negative here. So if we know the height is, again, x plus 4, and I put in negative 10, what happens? That doesn't make sense. So I just cross that answer out. Even though the math is correct, it doesn't make sense in the context of the problem. Let's look at the other one. If I put in 10, 10 plus 4, the height is 14. Yep, that works. That could be a possible answer. Notice if I go up and find the length here, if I put in 10, 10 times 2 is 20. 20 minus 8, that's 12. So, yeah, that'll work too. So, example 2, it says two consecutive, meaning next to each other, negative integers have a product that is 24 more than 3 times a smaller integer. So, I have two numbers. They're negatives. And they're consecutive, which means what? If one of them is x, how do I find the other one here? Well, if I think about it, consecutive next to each other, so 24 and 25, -8 and -9. If one of the integers is x, how do I find the next one? I'm going to add 1 here. And we did some problems like this before in previous chapters here. So now I'm going to take a look and say, okay, if I know what integer 1 is, if I know what integer 2 is, now let's create an equation here. So it says they have a product. Two consecutive integers have a product that is. That's our equal sign here. Product means multiply. And what two things am I multiplying? Two consecutive integers. So I'm going to take x and then multiply it by x plus 1. And it is, and now I have 24 more than, so plus 24. And then 3 times the smaller number. Well, which is the smaller number here, x or x plus 1? I think it's going to be x here. So that's the smaller one. So I'm going to take 3 times that. It asked me to find the larger of the two numbers. So I'm going to multiply the x in. I'm going to solve this now. So at this point, when I factor this, I get x minus 6 and x plus 4. When I set them equal to 0, I get x minus 6 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. So I get x equals 6, x equals negative 4. Okay, again, if I take a look, if I look at the 6 here, does 6 make sense in the problem? It says I have 2 consecutive negative integers. Well, is 6 negative? No. So, that doesn't make sense. That's not negative. So it can't be 6. What does it have to be then? It has to be negative 4. Now, what did I want to find? I wanted to find the larger of them. Which is the larger of them? So if it's x, what's the larger one? X plus 1. So the answer would be negative 3. That's the one I'm looking for. So in example 3, you're at a four-way intersection. That's our starting point here. It says you're traveling due south. Your friend is traveling due east. And then it says, asks you how fast are each of you going after 2 hours? You're 100 miles apart. So that distance right there is 100 miles. It asks you how fast are you going? We don't know at this point, so that's going to be your speed. Your speed and your friend's speed. Now, what do we know? It says your speed is 10 miles an hour faster than your friend. How fast is your friend going? We don't know, so that's going to be our x. So your friend's speed is x. Your speed is 10 miles an hour faster than that, or x plus 10. Now, typically when we do this, we see, oh yeah, okay, so you are x plus 10, your friend is x, okay, there. But the issue we have is this, the distance that there's 100 miles. Well, x and x plus 10 are not distances. So I have to find the distance traveled. So remember, distance is rate times time. So what do we know? We know the rate is x and x plus 10, but we don't know the time. Oh, what does it say? How fast are each of you going after 2 hours? So I'm going to plug in 2.
Matt, you just ruined it. I know. Wait a minute. Hear myself.
Awesome, you get to hear yourself. So you put the 2 in. The distance equals the rate times time, so it's 2 times x plus 10 and 2 times x. That's going to be my distance. 2x, that's going to be my distance. So each thing is talking about distance here.
We're not going to have law on Thursday. So we have an assembly.
No, we're doing the modified schedule thing, so we still have to start.
Yeah, you'll still have it. So, taking a look. What do I have? I have 100. I have 2 times x plus 10, and I have 2x. I also have a right angle here. So, we're going to go back and use some geometry. The Pythagorean theorem. Now, if you recall the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We've done a little bit before already. Remember, c, that's the hypotenuse. That's always across from the right angle. A and b, those are your 2 legs here. So it's side squared plus side squared equals the hypotenuse squared. Again, this always only works in a right triangle. Remember right triangles, 90-degree angle, that shows us there. So what do I have? I have 2x squared. I have the 2x plus 20. That's, I just distributed the 2, and then I have to square that. And it equals 100 squared, or 10,000. At this point now, just like the other ones, I'm going to get everything over to one side. And then I'm going to factor it. I would look, can I take an 8 out? That would be my first thought. Can I divide through by 8? Looks like I can here, because if I divide by 8, I get 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 80 divided by 8, yep, that works. And 9,600 divided by 8, yes, that would work as well. Right. So that's what I'm going to do. If I divide everything by 8, I get x squared plus 10x minus 120, or 1,200. So when I factor this now, again, you could use guess and check or factor by grouping. I get x and x, and then I get plus 40 minus 30. When I check it, I'm going to go and put the x in. X plus 40 equals 0. X minus 30 equals 0. Remember, x is what? The speed here. So the first one, x plus 40 equals 0. I get x equals negative 40. Nope, can't be that. Speed can't be negative. So I can cross out the negative 40. If I look, x is 30. Okay. If x is 30 here, it asks you how fast are each of you going. So if x is 30, you are going 30 plus 10. So your friend is going 30 miles an hour. You are going 30 plus 10, or 40 miles an hour.